For our top international story this hour, we look to Yemen as this week U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis called for a ceasefire to be implemented in the country within the next 30 days. Speaking in Washington on Tuesday, Secretary Mattis called on parties involved in the war to, quote, move toward a peace effort.
The longer-term solution, and by longer term, I mean 30 days from now, we want to see everybody around a peace table based on a ceasefire, based on a pullback from the border, and then based on ceasing dropping of bombs that will permit the special envoy, Martin Griffin, who's very good, he knows what he's doing, to get them together in Sweden and end this war. That is the only way we're going to really solve this. Improved accuracy of bombs is still a war. So we've got to move toward a peace effort here, and we can't say we're going to do it sometime in the future. We need to be doing this in the next 30 days. We've admired this problem for long enough down there.
It should be mentioned here that the United States has more power in this war than the ability to simply call for a ceasefire. The U.S., in fact, supplies the Saudi-led coalition with the weapons it uses to carry out the war and gives mid-air refueling to coalition jets carrying out the devastating airstrikes on the country. As journalist Ben Norton reports, throughout the war in Yemen, quote, there is one party that has been responsible for thousands of air raids, the Saudi Air Force, as a part of a coalition with the U.S., the U.K., and the UAE. He adds, quote, when Yemen is discussed, it is virtually always through the lens of a civil war. This exceedingly widespread myth, which has permeated media discourse, denies the extent to which the conflict is actually a foreign war on Yemen, led by Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and their U.S. and European sponsors. With Yemen in question, we are joined now by Hassan El-Tayyab, Policy Director for Chicago Area Peace Action. Nice to see you again, Hassan. Hey. Were you surprised at all to hear this call from the Pentagon, and why do you believe it happened now?
I was surprised and not surprised. It should have happened a long time ago. But I think the pressure in Congress, caused by all the grassroots pressure put on members of Congress, has brought this to a tipping point. I mean, in the coming weeks, the Senate is going to be voting on SJ Res 54, led by Bernie Sanders, and that would actually pull U.S. support. So I think the Trump administration wants to get ahead of this before Congress forces their hand.
And what exactly has Saudi's objective in Yemen been all along, and was it ever militarily achievable?
They have wanted to reinstall Hadi, who was the leader of Yemen prior to the civil war. And do I think it was ever achievable? No. He was not supported. He did not have popular support in his own country. And you need popular support, and you need a representative government. So this Yemen has turned into a quagmire with lots of factions breaking off, and their strategy of using food and starvation as a weapon will never be able to secure power for Hadi in the country.
And their target in this war has been the Houthi rebel group, which they accuse Iran of sponsoring and supporting. Yeah. Is there any truth to that, or are the Houthis a true organic political movement in Yemen?
They are an indigenous tribe in Yemen, so they do practice Shia Islam, but it's Zaydiya Shia Islam, which is different than what the Iranians do. So Iran initially told the Houthi rebels not to actually overthrow Sana'a because they couldn't support them. The longer this gets drawn out, though, the more Iran is most likely to get involved.
But we hear constantly that this is a battle to fight Iranian influence in Yemen, and that seems to kind of obscure the fact that there's a genuine resistance to, you know, Saudi influence in the country. Yeah,
absolutely. And so that's been a narrative Saudi Arabia has taken to wage an all-out war, and MBS has taken to wage this all-out war. But when you look at the facts, there's not, you know, a ton of evidence to show that Iran is playing any major role. And, you know, Saudi Arabia, you know, for billions of dollars a year is getting dragged into this quagmire, which was originally done for local reasons.
Do you think the Saudis see this war as valuable at this point?
I don't see how logical people could, but that's assuming that they're being logical. And I don't think they are at this point, because they are losing the PR battle, they're losing Congress, now the administration is talking about cutting support. So,
what could the U.S. do if it was truly responsible, or rather dedicated to protecting civilian lives in Yemen and wanting to truly end this war?
Yeah. So I think what U.S. citizens can do is they need to call their representatives and call their senators. You can dial 833 Stop War, and that's a hotline right to the Capitol, and ask them to support HCON Res 81 and SJ Res 54, and you can just ask them to end U.S. support for the Saudi-led coalition's war on Yemen. Because, as you know, we are doing targeting assistance and doing mid-air refueling of Saudi warplanes, and if we cut that, I think the Saudi Arabian government would have a hard time waging this war. In a few days, if we cut off, just giving them spare parts like tires for warplanes, they would have to be completely grounded.
And Mattis could supposedly do this himself, no? Couldn't he say something to the Saudis if he was really wanting to push a ceasefire here, more than simply asking for it in a sort of public way?
I think, yes, he could certainly, force the DOD and force the administration. But, I think it's really, we can't wait for them as American citizens. We have to push Congress to do this. And, and the more pressure we put on Congress, the more pressure gets put on the administration. Yeah,
it's just interesting to see the Secretary of Defense make a statement like this when he could, at the end of the day, tell the U.S. military not to participate in the war anymore.
I agree.
which, like you say, would end the war tomorrow. So we'll see where this goes. If there's any sort of move toward the peace process, they're saying 30 days. So let's give it a shot, see what happens, and we can have you back on to discuss as this story develops. Hassan, El-Tayyab, thanks so much.
Well, thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.